Welcome to the second part of the technical drawings tutorial. So now we designed the previous tutorial the outer lines, and now we are going to draw the inner lines. So the same thing as for the outer lines, we lock this layer of outer lines, and I create a new layer, calling him new inner lines. Okay, so as for the outer lines, we're going to draw inside, starting from the center. So I start to draw. I draw this line. Okay, so as you can see, I have this white here because I have to choose no fill and black for the color of the stroke. Now for the inner lines, it's not like for outer lines, because outer lines is just one single line. Here I have to break my line every time and restart again. So as you can see, if I go here, Illustrator understands that I want to draw this line like this, but I don't want to do that. So I go back. I have to start again the line. So to do that, I have to take no matter which other item and select the pen tool. So to go faster, I just press V to select my my selection tool, the black arrow, and press P on my keyboard to go back to the pen tool. Or otherwise, just click here and here to start over a line. So I start over this other line. Okay, so just go for it like this. Okay, for the inner lines, I prefer I select both with the black arrows and shift to select both lines, to select multiple lines, and I prefer to choose a less thicker stroke. So I go to the stroke menu here and I select the 0.75. It is a slightly thinner stroke for inner lines. So now I drew the lines for the color. I just reposition this point because it's better like this. Okay, with the white arrow, of course, because I have to reposition just one point and not all the line. And now I have to copy this line to be able to do the stitching line. Okay, so to do the stitching line, we're going to use the dashed line option here in the stroke menu. But first of all, we have to copy this line. Of course, I can just draw again another line, but it will be faster to copy this and just drag it here. So I can just select it with the black arrow and do Command C and Command V to copy and just reposition it like where I want. Or I can also, like, if I select the line and I press Alt and Command and click and drag, I have the copy of my line, just like for Photoshop. When you want to copy the is the same as in Photoshop. So now I have to reposition the points here and a little bit the arm here, the curve. Okay, so now I have a perfect parallel line like that follows the same direction as this one, and I have to click dashed line on my stroke menu. So here I have multiple options. I will going to talk about the two here, and is to control the size, the length of the dash and the length of the gap between the dashes. So the first is for the length of the gap. I usually put 3, and for the length of the gap, I usually put 1 or 2. Just put 1, okay, to see. Now it looks like stitching, of course. So now I'm going on drawing my lines, my inner lines. So I pick up the pen tool and I just draw this line of the raglan cut. So as you can see, I still have the dashed line because it keeps in memory that I wanted a dashed line for this, but now I want to draw a uniform line. So I just have to declick, or I have to take the eyedrop and just go back to in order to show. I take the eyedrop here and I just click on the line I want to be the same. Like I click on this line because I want this line to be exactly the same thickness and uniform like this one. With the eyedrop is possible. So I copy this line again, as I told you, with Alt and Command on my keyboard. I click on the line and I release, and I have the copy of my line. So now, as I have the eyedrop, I want this to be a dashed line, this one. So I just go and click where I had the dash, and that's all. And I have automatically a dashed line that appears. So now I'm going to go for my inner lines. So I go again for like drawing the inner lines. Like here. Okay, I take the eyedrop just to be sure to have a uniform line. I just, so it will be the same thickness, and I just reposition with my white arrow. I reposition the curve and the point, so now it's perfectly aligned. And I will have to talk. I do this one like the middle line, and here the same. I just click Command Alt and click and drag on the line to copy it, and then I pick the eyedrop to select the dashed line, and I will have the same dashed line here. Okay, so it's pretty easy. Now I want to tell you more about the type of lines. For example, the lines you will draw for the pleats. Like here, as you can see here, we have some pleats. So I will represent this pleat with not a uniform line, but with a dynamic line. So first of all, I draw my line. I draw like this. Okay, I draw my line. So what I want to is to have this line with the kind of dynamics like for comics, you know, like a thicker line that becomes thinner at the end to symbolize the pleat. So I go to the stroke menu, and the option I will find, it will be here on the bottom of my menu. I click the arrow, and here I have a lot of different dynamics. So I just try one of them just to show you. I will try this one because I want my line to be thick on the and thin on the top. So you will have a representation of line, this dynamic. If I don't know, if in your case you have like this kind of thing, the opposite, you can always inverse the dynamics by clicking these two arrows here next to the menu, the dynamics menu. Okay, so I will have this kind of line to represent the pleats. So now what I want to show you, and I want to show you another way to draw, for example, this kind of line. As you can see, you can do with a pen tool, but you have a lot of curves that aren't very regular. So I will be choosing the pencil. The pencil is like hand drawings, like free hand drawings. So you just click and you say click and draw like on like free drawing. I still have the dynamics, so I just go to the menu, to stroke menu and say uniform. So I will have a uniform line. And so in this way, I can actually draw like freely by hand like this. And I will draw lines very curvy, irregular. So this is perfect for this kind of, even if you have to do something like more like this, for example, it will be easier to use the pencil tool. Okay, so here I reposition a little bit my points here to be attached to my line. Okay, so the same as before, I stay click with Command and Alt, and I click and drag my line to have a copy of my line, and then I click on the eyedrop and choose my dashed line just over there. I reposition this point. Okay, and I have almost finished my inner line. So now what I have to do is to select everything with the black arrow. I just click and drag a big square around it and click right like for outer lines to have the transformation. So rotate mirror and preview and copy, and we'll have a copy of my inner lines. I just be sure to click on one of the lines to drag it into my perfect. I just check if it looks like okay, a little bit farther, like here, it would be very good. So now what I have to do is to join these points in the middle to make it perfectly uniform. Okay, so as for the outer line, select the 2 points with the white arrow, not the black, the white. I just click and drag a square around the 2 points here. I have the 2 points here. I click right and I say average and both. Average and both. And now I can do Command J to join. Okay, so I have to do the same thing for each lines. So click right, average, and join, Command J. The same here. Click right, average, both, and Command. Okay, I go down with the space bar. I just can take a little the screen. I reposition my drawing, as you can see, like here, and I select these 2 points. So I say click right, average, and Command J, then average, both, and Command J. So all my center is joined. So here I have a little, yeah, here I have a little point. It's not very good for technical drawings to have this kind of point on the middle. So what I have to do is select a line and just I have to erase this point. Let's see if it's better. If I just take the pen tool and approach this point, I have a minus next to my pen tool icon and I click, but it doesn't work because actually I need this point. I just have to modify the curves to be able to not having this kind of little point here. So what I have to do, I take my curve, my anchor point tool, which is here, anchor point tool. So what you do is to click this point and make the two eyes out of the point, and then as you can see it's not good, but I can take white arrow and modify the arms of the curve. It's better. That was, I exaggerate a little bit here, but normally if you do, yeah, that's a little bit better. I have to remove a little bit here. That's okay. So I want to reposition a little bit also this line. Okay, just a little bit higher. And sometimes you have these kind of points that will actually arrange the curve. Just take it with the, you select the point, you just take it with the white arrow, and you can actually modify a little bit the curve. Okay, that's good. And so I have my inner lines perfectly symmetrical. Don't forget, when you have, like here, when you have a collar, a sweatshirt, normally you can see also the part, this cut here. So I will just add a little line here, not dashed line, normal line. And normally you will have, position my point, and normally you will have a little dashed line, a stitching on the top. So I just take the eyedrop and do the dashed line, and that's okay. So now I have all my cuts and curves and stitching, so it's okay. I can go to the layer menu and lock it. Now, next step is to create the little, this is like optional, but just learn it because it gives a very good result. So as you can see, the edges of the wrist and the bottom here and the here normally has little lines like this that symbolize the boards and the finishing. So I have to create a brush, like a pattern brush that allows me to draw these lines, these little lines, in just one, with just one stroke. So what I have to do, I create a new layer. I say I just put trims. Okay, so now I have to create my trim. To create my trim, I just draw a line, more or less the length of my border. I will take it's better to take the wrist one because it's longer, so it's better to go here on the wrist and draw longer, perfectly vertical line. Okay, and uniform line, not dashed line. Okay, so I draw this line. I choose a little on the thickness here, a little thick than before, thinner, and I will take the rectangle tool to draw actually the box around my line. The box around my line has to be with no stroke and no fill, so invisible. Be sure just to have this line with the black color, but the rectangle, the box around, will be invisible. And so I just draw a rectangle exactly, sorry, invisible, I said invisible. Okay, so I go here and I said no fill and no stroke. So my line has to be perfectly aligned here. You can see I have my little point here, and I have the box. It's a little bit it's not very perfectly aligned, so I zoom a lot to be sure to be perfectly on the center of my line. Okay, so now what I have to do, the box actually represents the gap between one line and another. So between when I will have my pattern brush, I will have this gap, I will have these sort of things, like this will be the gap between my, so if you want less gap, your box has to be smaller. If you want less gap between one line and another. Okay, so I select both the line and the box, and I open the brush menu. If you don't have, you just go to window and select shapes or brush. It depends on your version, but normally you have brush. My version is called shape. Okay, so you just have to click and drag into the menu here in the empty space here, and you release, and then you have this window that asks you if you want a scatter brush, a pattern brush. I will go for pattern brush because you want to have this kind of lines here. Okay, like this is the result of your brush. You don't touch anything for the moment. You just check this first menu, because it's for angles. Okay, what you want your angles to be. So I said automatic adjustment. So here, when you will have an angle, it will follow the angle like this. You will have the points here and the lines going like this. Okay, so it's intuitive, it's automatically done. So you don't touch anything, you just name it trim borders. Okay, and now in your menu you will have the trim borders here. Okay, so now you can erase your line here because you don't need it anymore. And if I choose the pen tool and draw a line and select my trim border, I will have this kind of line. So as you can see, in just one click I can draw a lot of lines like this. Now the next step is to make this part, for example, put this line only into this part here of the wrist. So what I have to do is to redraw the placement here, but in invisible, so I don't want any stroke and any fill. So I will redraw a little bit more roughly than before, just to have a sort of patch, invisible patch, where I will draw into my pattern brush, my pattern brush. So this is my shape, and I want to draw inside of my shape. In Illustrator you have here here you have three different drawing options. You have the first one is drawing normally, the second is drawing behind, and the third is drawing into. So we are interested in drawing into, so you have to click icon. You will have this kind of square around your, and now if you draw, you will draw inside the shape you create, the invisible shape you create. So I select my trim border. Sorry, I have to just to click outside to deselect my shape here, then select my pen tool, select the trim border, and now I can draw inside. Okay, so I can draw inside my placement. So if you want to move a little bit up the lines, you just have to click with the white arrow and just move a little bit here, and that's okay. On the stroke menu, for example, you have also the possibility to change the size of the lines, like you change the size of the thickness of your stroke. You change this dimension, you will have bigger lines and bigger gaps, or smaller lines and smaller gaps, but you don't have to do that, because otherwise you will lose the length of the line also. So I just go for the basic one, just 1 point will be our line. So now I don't have to redraw, for example, the same thing here. I just have to copy the same thing here. So I take my black arrow. I don't forget to escape the inside drawing option, so I click on the first option here, and now I can just click on this part, click right, transform, mirror, and copy, and drag just in the other part, align it like this. Okay, it will be the same for this part in the middle, so I have to click on the pen tool, draw invisible lines, so no fill, no stroke, and I just draw my, it's like an inlay of drawing. So I draw the shape of my, okay, so now I have to click the option draw into. I just take the move to the selection tool, I click outside to deselect this line, otherwise if I, like before, if I select borders, it will draw also this line with the trim, but I don't want this, so I go back with Command Z, I click just here on empty bar to deselect here, and now I can draw my line with the pen tool. I just draw my line in the middle like this and select the trim, and I will have the perfect like this. So now I escape the inside mode, inside drawing, and I do the same thing for the color. For example, I draw my lines invisible, of course, so I will draw the color like this, okay. I try to be a little bit precise, so always adjust the line, the anchor points later, but it's better if you do good at the beginning. So I draw my shape of inlay, and now I will go for the inside mode drawing. I click no matter where to deselect the line. I select the trim borders, and now I have to draw. I take the pen tool and I draw my line. So I have to draw in the middle of my inlay to have, like for example, to have the same curve, to make my trim following the same curve, like this. I will click here and here, like this. Sorry. I can reposition my points here. For example, I reposition a little bit. And as you can see, my lines follow the curve. That's why I need a pattern brush to do that. Okay, I deselect, I escape, and I do the same thing for the back part, this part. So I draw an invisible line, like this. I go here and I draw just the part, okay, like this, like this. Oh, I did something wrong, but it's because the shape it ends here. So I just want to add some points. So I will add 1 point here and 1 point here. Okay, and I will erase the one in the middle. It will be like this, and I readjust the curve with the white arrow, like this, or I can also do something else. I can these points and join again. I can cut by the cut tool, cut like the chisel tool. I just click here and click here, and as you can see, I have this segment selected, and I erase it on my keyboard. Just erase, delete. Okay, now I can close my line again. This. Okay, I will position a little bit the points like this. Now I enter the inside, draw inside. I select and deselect this line, and I choose my pen tool to draw a line like this in the middle to have the trim. Here again I had to start a little bit farther. Okay, and now I have my trim. I escape the inside drawing mode. As you can see here, I have a little, but it's not very a problem. I can always adjust by clicking on the line. Here I approach this line, and I can change. If I change inlay, like for example, if I change the invisible line here, I will automatically change the trim, because the trim is inside. So if I change the contour, if I change the edge of this one will be changed too. For example, if I change this line, see that I change also the inside. That's why it's important to draw inside. And here too, if I click on this line and change a little curve, I will adjust the curve. But you don't need to be too precise, because when you print you won't see this kind of little thing. But I show you just to be able to be precise if you want. So now we have everything on this technical drawing. So what I have to do is to lock the trim, and it's done. I have my technical drawing. If you want, why it's important to separate the outer lines and the inner lines and the trim? Because when you will want to draw the back of it, it won't be so different. It will be changing a little bit here and here. So the inner lines will change, but the outer lines won't change. So if you lock the outer lines, okay, you will have already done the base for the back of your technical drawings. You can also keep the inner lines if you want, and if you select everything, you will have the outer lines and inner lines, and you can just have to delete the lines you don't need and modify the lines to draw the back of your technical drawings very fast. Okay, so that's why it's important to separate the inner lines and outer lines. Sorry, I go back like this. And for example, it's important for the outer lines, is very useful if you want some colors to your technical drawings. You don't need to usually put a color on technical drawings, but if you want, for example, if you want to put even a color to how to say, to represent some different models like this, like a color chart, you can just take the outer line, click and drag on to copy them, you lock, and you just put on the top, okay, and change the like this, and I put in transparency. I go to the transparency menu, and if I don't have the transparency, I Windows and find transparency, and I put in product mode, multiply for your version, the second one, multiply. You will have a color on the top of your technical drawing. So that's basically all for the technical drawings. So I have 38 minutes tutorial, pretty enough. Okay, so I hope it will be some help for you, and I see you in few days, and I tell you goodbye and have a nice time. Bye.